This is the Dzogchen Sunday Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I've spent about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, and mastering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that you would not have to. This is Luke Skywalker Friday early morning. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi after chanting the second quarter of Prahevajra's vast space of Vajrasattva. Now remember, the moment you have a specific question about Buddhist about Buddhist philosophy or meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window. The words attachment and detachment, as in the middle way, are as non-graspable as an echo, and pleasure and pain are basically the same. How does that work? Simple. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever pleasure or pain we noticed during our previous inhalation could feel as if it was melting into the simplicity of just sensation. Let's continue. Thus the Lord of Beings Vajrasattva teaches through his Vajra and Ganta, symbolizing noticing and relaxing. So Vajra is this thing right here, symbol. Ganta is this bell right here. Vajrasattva teaches desire, dread, and delusion also occur in the luminous mind modality. The presence of these three experiences is not an indictment. In fact, when we persist in noticing and relaxing, they actually serve us on the path. Let's continue. And the five sensuous pleasures ornament the spaciousness that is the field of modality. What are the five pleasures? Beautiful sights, melodious sounds, blissful sensations, enjoyable flavors, delightful scents. Space and the concept of space are both unoriginated, so the concept itself is just like space. So what do we mean by space? As we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could feel, at least fleetingly, less stressful, less permanent, less defining, and even as non-graspable as a vast empty void. Now, a simile is only as useful as it is relatable. So, what is a real-world example of a non-graspable, vast empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although could look tantalizing to the eye, could feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void. So what do we mean by unoriginated? As we relax into our exhalation, whatever origination we noticed during our previous inhalation can feel unoriginated as we relax into our exhalation. So there's an old saying, let me know if you've heard this before. Everything is empty, even emptiness is empty. In other words, we don't fetishize anything, including emptiness itself. Emptiness is just a metaphor for the fleeting experience latent within each exhalation. Let's continue. In the detachment of dedicated space, ultimate self-validating space emerges. Let us explore the folly of Anuyoga or Tiklei's energy work. Unthought sameness, pure being, like the moon's reflection in water, cannot be grasped. In the all-good display of Samantabhadra, it is foolishly thought to be revealed as the ultimate, as the ulterior or hidden vows and consonants. So here is the tragic irony. Everything that we can notice, perceptions, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings, all of them are rendered all good simply by relying upon our autonomic nervous system's capacity to notice and relax in harmony with our breathing. Yet, people foolishly turn their backs on that and instead turn to the path of contrivance and try to bend their experience of reality to their will like a child folding an origami crane. Let's continue. As the navel sumo adorning the crown's Lama Kiano Pei, and as the chest Lama Nojura and the complex elaborations. As a field of experience of the finite world, ulterior or secret Buddha speech emerges, also it is foolishly taught. So, we went from a general idea and now to 3 specifics. There are many flavors, there are many variations of energy work. Those are the 3 most popular. Whoops. Know the field of Buddha experience cannot be found by actively seeking and striving. As 6-fold sensory experience provides no object. To seek it is like a blind man reaching for the sky. So the author has done is said, here's an idea, here's a foolish idea that's very popular. Here's the way this foolish idea is executed. And then he concludes by saying, please don't follow that path. Why not? Well, the path of proto-Buddhism is said to be, the Buddha explained that it could be mastered in as little as 7 days, which is pretty quick. However, the people who speak of visualizations and rituals and energy work and talk about mastering the path in 7 lifetimes, which is completely different. And I don't recommend, from personal experience, I don't recommend traversing the path of being rigid and controlling. It does not enhance our peace or our love. Let's continue. Now let us explore the folly of Gondro's preliminary practices. The so-called path of purity, claiming to reach from height to height, is at odds with this free-form modality. Journeying on this pathless path, there is no destination as in boundless space. The path is the goal. What if enlightenment was simply mastery of the Buddha's 8-fold path? But what is mastery? You and I and every other human are mastery machines. As children, we mastered using the commode instead of our diapers. We mastered brushing our teeth, tying our shoes, riding our bike, reading, writing, arithmetic. And as adults, we can get so good at the Buddha's Eightfold Path that we practice it spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. Here's the key. The dynamo which drives the mastery of the Buddha's Eightfold Path, or the seventh and eighth folds of the mindfulness that notices as we breathe in, and the meditation that relaxes as we breathe out. Simply by playing with that at least once every 12 hours or so, the remaining six folds are taken care of automatically, which is wonderful. This path can be mastered in as little as 7 days. Mastering the path does not mean you stop feeling emotions. It does not mean you perpetually regurgitate winning lottery numbers. It simply means you've mastered the path of bringing whatever slings and arrows of outrageous fortune into the path of awareness and release. Let's continue. Because these things are complete just as they are. In this moment of revelation lies this attainment. The essence of luminous mind is a universal source, and the entire reality is pure and simple. Yes. That was before and what was before and what is now. As empty suchness is the same intrinsical or natural vastness. Every time we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation, whether it was external or internal or physical or mental or pleasurable or painful or interesting or boring or glorious or grotesque, whatever we noticed could feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining, and less graspable. Such is the Buddha modality, for empty suchness is its nature. Emptiness is not some contrivance of the intellect. It is the natural experience latent within each exhalation. We could silently and mentally recite the verbs verb watch during each inhalation and rest during each exhalation. When we do so, we're not forcing our brain to notice and watch, notice and relax, because our brain's already wired to do that regardless of our intention. Then why could we play with those verbs? To remind our intention to take a relaxing break from the exhausting habit of actively competing against our own autonomic nervous systems and instead cooperate with it vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. That's why we call it a natural path. So the here and now is the whole process, like the moon and its reflection at one. Yet being entirely the same, it cannot be seen by a selective focus. Super important. It has been my experience that when we rely upon the only part of our brain, when we rely on active concentration, the part of our brain that is wired for that is the medial prefrontal cortex, just behind the forehead. When we overwork that, we trigger our amygdala, the teeny tiny organelle at the bottom of our brain that is wired, that functions as the seat of anxiety and aggression, which I'm sure you will agree is the opposite of peace and love. When we take a break from the focus of our medial prefrontal cortex and instead rely upon our sympathetic, the core of our sympathetic nervous system, ensconced within the middle bit of our spinal cord, on the opposite end of our autonomic nervous system, we're able to notice, as I mentioned previously, vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. And we're able to relax and release in a distinctly therapeutic manner. Let's continue. Present pleasure and future pleasure, order right perception and its shadow. Such conceptual calculation is a mistake, do not trust it. The sixth fold of the Buddha's eightfold path could be described by many words. Some describe it as right effort. Some people describe it as effortless effort. Some people describe it as non-action or wu-wei or do-no-do. Some people describe it as going with the flow. Some people describe it as being in the zone. The more we authentically play with mindfulness and meditation, the more our choices, utterances, and deeds flow, not from contrived calculation, not from wild scatteredness, but from love's deeply centered spontaneity. So we do not go through life in a contrived sense, completely trying to plan everything. We flow from love's deep centeredness that is the byproduct of authentic mindfulness and meditation. Let's continue. Past, present, and future are one without distinction. The past never arisen, the future never arising. Embraced by pure being, all is one, natural and exalted vastness. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever experience of past or present or future we noticed during our previous inhalation can feel as if they were melting in the simplicity of just time. With timeless involvement in the threefold universe, ideas appear as illusory attachment. Even the seat of the universal emperor. Well, something's going on around here. Okay. Yep, let's see here. Even the seat of a real or imagined universal emperor is a place conditioned by illusion. Those whose lives are slaves of time never see an immediate outcome. If activity is fraught with hope, it can only be empty action. So there's a phrase we keep saying, timelessness. If we are stuck in our tendencies to be rigid and controlling, if we forsake the path of letting go, our efforts will meet with great frustration. Excellent. So this concludes, so now is the optimal time. So if you have any questions about Buddhist philosophy or meditation, now is the best time for you to type those questions in great detail in the chat window, for we have completed our opening recitation and are now preparing for the practice of group mindfulness and meditation that we will practice together for the next, let's see, 40, let's see here, 55 minus 1, 5 is 4, so 34 minutes. Don't see any questions, so let's move forward. Let's see. I guess what I should do is hit 68. Let's go over here, home. For the next 34 minutes, let us sit and breathe and watch mind's antics and rest in voidness. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. For Meditate Like a Jedi is made possible thanks to the generosity of viewers just like you. In approximately 11 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's dusk, recitation, and group practice of meditating like a Jedi. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.